Beautiful,
Really
Chelsea.
good.
Okay, stick around. All right, we want to introduce David Arsenault now. And we love David's work. Known David for a
Yeah.
few years now. I think since he's come to the Rockport area.
Yes.
How are you, bud?
Hi, David.
Great to see you.
You can put those right up here so people
Yeah,
can
I
see
can
your
try to
artwork
hold things
right
up,
away.
and
Yeah.
you guys, the crew can tell me what they want and where.
We can talk right.
They
Let's.
look very familiar.
I didn't.
Look at this.
Oh yeah, I saw that one. That's gorgeous.
Where do you want me, David? Here? Kyle, do you want me there? Pretty good, huh?
A
Jeez.
small print of a very large painting.
Oh, this is. Oh, so you have. This is actually a larger
That is the
painting.
giclée
Unbelievable.
print of a 3x4 foot painting that I did back in 2019 of this amazing space.
Beautiful.
That
Trying to
shows?
describing the personality of the place is important to me, trying to describe the gradual shift in light from the windows only into the darkened space, and to hopefully convey the sense of anticipation of you being the very first person in the venue, and your performer is the one who's coming on next.
Yeah.
That is a great moment when you walk through those doors and you see the whole. It hits you, I should say. So let's start right away by talking about your artistic journey, because I in my notes I say I see lots of dramatic light situations and architectural composition. Am I right?
Those things are in there.
Yeah.
You could say that. Yeah.
So how did you get to this exquisite style?
I took a very convoluted route. I was one of those people who didn't know what I was going to do when I grew up. And it wasn't until my mid-30s that I even thought of anything related to visual arts.
Wow.
So I started studying graphic design because I thought, okay, so you're going to do something creative and it's visual, but it has to be practical. Because by then, I had a young family, I had a house, I had responsibilities. And so I studied graphic design, and then I immediately moved into a position in that field for an educational publisher. This is when I lived in upstate New York. And after 3 years, I thought, okay, well, this is interesting, and we're paying the bills, and yet there's a lot of compromise that goes into the process because you're working with marketing, and you're working with editorial, and you're working with all the other decision makers in the process. And I would start with a design of some sort, and by the end of the process, I'd look and say, now which part did I do? You know, it became more about a production aspect, and that even continued when I moved into art direction. So thankfully, back in the 1990s, you also went to graphic design school, and they taught you the hand skills, painting, drawing, studio classes, working from a model, working from a still life, and that kind of turned on the jets. But when I saw in one of my studies on perspective, the professor introduced Edward Hopper's work for the study, and happened to be a study of Prospect Street in Gloucester, one of Hopper's famous paintings from Cape Ann. All of a sudden, the light went on. That's the guy I remember seeing when I was shelving books as a 7th grader. And that made me want to do something that helped me describe to other people what it was I was feeling when I saw that. And so I talked my boss into letting me take studio classes, painting classes. During the workday, they were only available, unfortunately, during the day. And he was a frustrated painter, too. So he said, okay, fine, as long as you get your work done, go ahead. I just stayed with it for 3 courses. 3 introductory courses, and then I started getting some feedback that encouraged me to join a professional artist group and to start showing my work in group shows. And thankfully, good things continued to happen, and eventually I was starting to show in regional and national shows in New York and Chicago and places like that. Eventually Martha's Vineyard and Western Mass and Cape Cod. Eventually fell in love with Cape Ann. And my wife and I were at a point in history where we were ready for a new adventure, and this seemed like the perfect place for it.
Well, tell us about that. But first, I do want to comment that you are one of the few artists ever who could raise a family and enjoy their passion. So,
Thank you.
Congrats for that. That's incredible.
It took a while.
Yeah, but how did you choose? I guess were you traveling around and you discovered Cape Ann? Why Rockport?
That's an excellent question, and there's no logical answer to it other than having the experience of being here. I had never been, and in 2012, my wife and I were in Boston, and she said, I'm going to take you to Good Harbor Beach in Gloucester. And we did, but it was only for an afternoon. It was the only time we got to the ocean all summer that year. And so after the experience we had, which was wonderful, There's nothing like seeing that iconic house sitting on the rock at Good Harbor Beach to just make you feel like, wow, there's something special here. We decided to come back for an anniversary trip the following August. And then we came back in the fall. And then he came back in the winter. And then we came back in the spring. And meanwhile, we're meeting artists. We're visiting with people that just seem to have a real warmth and genuineness to them. We're finding the business climate and for artists is very good at the time, and it still is. And we just decided that this was going to be where next big adventure was. Of course, we had to find housing, and there are all kinds of things about moving. My wife, I was filming a special for a PBS station back in, well, it didn't happen until I was sitting in the waiting room when she was having knee surgery. But that's when I found out about that they wanted me to do this special with them for a brand new show. And eventually, she got over the knee surgery, and we made our move a month later. And the magic has been with us ever since.
So wait, what was the PBS show?
It was a show called A House for Arts. It was a brand new show that they introduced in the upstate New York PBS affiliate. And it's something that's been shared around a lot of the different stations around the country. They kind of co-share with each other, all of the local affiliates. Kind of like WGBH would be one who could do such a thing, for example.
And just to make it clear for our audience, your wife has an important job here also. You both found,
Yes, she
found
does.
your careers, maybe, your passions. Tell us about that.
She was very much someone who had a calling to serve people and has always been serving in some capacity. She was hospice chaplain for a long time in the upstate New York area. And when she moved here, she called herself a minister without walls. She would be serving people for a funeral. She would be with people at a wedding, a baby blessing, doing counseling and things like that. Ultimately, it led to the opportunity to be a pastor of a church in Annisquam, the Annisquam Village Church. And so by some stretch of miracle, I got to come here to follow my dream, and she got to come here to follow hers. It's just
Beautiful.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
So David, how does living here now inform your art?
Well, that's a great question. Subject matter, I was exploring that on Cape Cod. When I was driving back and forth from upstate New York, I fell in love with Cape Cod first. No disrespect to Cape Cod. I just didn't know about it.
Well,
The
we
other
are the
Cape.
other Cape.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. But
They
I
really
consider
are.
them the other Cape.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to know what's what, yeah.
And I fell in love with the ocean, sea, and sky relationship, especially in the outer Cape, where it's kind of a dunescape. And then we came here on vacation, as I mentioned, and I looked around and I saw more spectacular light, at the very least the same spectacular light I saw in Cape Cod, but then I also saw different things. I saw a certain character that's architecture that's different from Cape Cod. I saw new places to see, and I saw all these rock formations, which really don't exist in the outer Cape. All of these curvaceous shapes that were very interesting, that had new color compositional possibilities, new integration with the earth, sea, and sky relationship, and I just said, I got to do this. My color has changed since I've been here. My color is much more saturated because of how I feel in response to the light that I'm seeing now. And I think I'm probably a little bit more thoughtful about my work and trying to describe personality of place. It takes me a little bit more time because sometimes the details are an important part of that, but I also think the details are where the light lives. And so the more I pay attention to certain kinds of details, not every detail, but certain ones, I feel like I can communicate the feeling of light, which is what, to me, is the most interesting thing about seeing.
Interesting.
Yeah, you say on your site that you're very picky about what you paint.
Yes. Yeah, I only do about a dozen paintings a year.
Wow, that's amazing. And you paint in your gallery, which is right, it's at 8
I
Dock
do,
Square, right?
Which also helps slow me down, too. Because during the summer season, there's a lot of people coming into the gallery, and I don't like people to come in to just, mind their own business and amuse themselves. I have conversations with people when they come in. And so every time that happens, I leave the studio, I leave the easel. So then I go back. I have to reorient myself. And so that slows me down in the summertime. The wintertime, of course, as we know, Rockport is mostly about dog walkers and cars driving by Dock Square, and I have a lot more time to do painting then.
But it makes for a really authentic Rockport experience to walk into your gallery and know that you're in the back working on a piece, and then
Or actually, I'm in the front.
Oh,
When
the
you
front,
open the
sorry.
front door, I'm there.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's no escape. No escape from the
Can we
artist.
take a look at this, David, that you brought as
Sure.
well?
So every year I do a piece of the motif. When I first moved here, I said, everybody's doing that? Well, I'm not going to do it. But I saw the wisdom of doing it. And so I've done one almost every year, with the exception of 2019. This is this year's version.
Come
Wow.
on.
This is, again, a smaller print. The original
gorgeous.
painting was much bigger.
Do you need me to hold that up, guys, or, yeah?
I thought
can take this, David.
the opportunity to consider the motif, not just sitting there minding its own business peacefully, resting in its iconic state, but having an opportunity to engage maybe with Mother Nature, with her energy, would be interesting this year. So I went down on the boat launch where the Thatcher Island people leave their skiffs to take them over to Thatcher Island, and I thought that was an interesting perspective that allowed me to see much more of the sky and get that big, powerful cloud coming up from behind.
It looks like the motif as superhero.
Well, as we know, it's going to live on.
Yeah, that's
It takes a winter
fabulous.
storm to take it down, not a summer storm.
So, can I ask a silly question?
Sure.
When in your life do you know that you have the ability to do something like this? I'm fascinated by people who can work with their hands. But I mean, this is amazing, how this goes from here to there. So did you know, like, I have a talent for this at some point?
I think probably the first time I really took it seriously, but again, remember, I'm somebody who had a hard time describing and figuring out who I was and what I was going to do with my life. Didn't have the great thought process for that. But I do remember I won Student of the Year as a high school art student when I was a freshman. And so that made me feel like I must be doing something right. But it really didn't stick in my head because I had so many other things I was trying to sort out. It took a long time before I got to the point where I had the courage to actually take this on and try it in a serious way. And I think that made all the difference for me, was actually committing to this specifically and to the exclusion of other things. And once I started my focus on that, then it changed, and then it got better, and then I got more exposure and more opportunities, like having my own gallery in a place like Rockport.
Yeah.
And I think courage is the operative word, right? To really say.
It took some nerve. It
Yeah.
took some nerve, yeah. I remember a long time ago at an opening, my then mother-in-law said to me, "Aren't you lucky that you could be able to do this?" And I said, no, I kind of insist on it. And I wanted her to know that luck had nothing to do with it, that I had put in the time, and I had made the effort, and it was important to me. And that's why it happened.
Yeah. It's beautiful work, David.
It
Thank
is.
you.
Do you feel like you have to do it?
Yeah, I find it very fulfilling in a lot of ways. I'm always interested to see where the next painting's going to be, where each one leads, because there's kind of a relationship between one and another in some ways, not a direct way. And I also feel like it's the kind of job that you never quit. I love doing what I'm doing. I love talking to people about it. I love the fact that people come from all over around the world in Rockport, want to know about it, want to talk about it, want to see it. And why would I want to stop that?
There you have it, folks. David Arsenault, 8 Dock Square. Are you open Tuesday through Sunday?
I'm open every day except Mondays, yes.
There you go. Perfect.
You
Thanks
got
so
it.
much for your time. I got it. I
Thank
nailed
you.
that.
You were good.
It's great seeing you again. Your
You
work
too,
speaks for
Corey.
itself, David. I love
Thank
it. I've
you.
always have.
Nice to be
Thank
with
you
you.
so much
Thanks for
Thank
joining
you,
us
guys.
today. Yeah.
Appreciate
And
it
yeah,
very much.
if people want to find you or learn more about you, how can they do that?
artofdavid.com is my website. They can also find me on Facebook, on my own gallery page, not my personal page. That's where I post my cat.
Yeah.
My gallery page, Art of David Painter, the Art of David Arsenault, and also on Instagram at Art of David Arsenault.
Great.
Wonderful.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you so
Thank you,
much for
guys.
joining
All right,
us.
we'll
Thank
see
you.
you soon.
All right,
Yeah.
take
All
care.
right, David
care.
Arsenault, 8 Dock Square, the Art of David Arsenault. I've been in that gallery many times. I've watched David work.